Hi, and welcome back to the Toronto International Film Festival. Thanks for joining us for one of our two Q&A sessions with the Directors of Films and Shortcuts Program 5 here at TIFF. My name is Jason Anderson. I'm the programmer for Shortcuts. I'm very excited to be joined by four filmmakers with work in the program. I'd like to introduce, or like each of them to introduce themselves and say which films they're here with, starting with Jorge.
Yeah, so I'm Jorge Camarotti. I am Brazilian, born in São Paulo, and now I live in Montreal. And I have my film OUSMANE. It's going to have its world premiere at TIFF 2020.
Great, thanks. And Marie.
Hello, my name is Marie. I'm in Montreal, and I did the film called BOOBS, or Lolo in French.
Thanks so much. And Lois.
Well, I'm Lois Patiño. I co-direct with Matías Piñeiro here in my side the film SYCORAX. It was premiering in the Directors Fortnight in Cannes, and now it's the American premiere here in TIFF.
Terrific.
And hi, I'm Matías Piñeiro. I'm the co-director of SYCORAX, the film that we did together with Lois, and I'm here happy to be able to show at TIFF again.
Great, yeah, and so thrilled to have you guys both back with a new film, and Marie and Jorge with their first films at TIFF. It's always happy to have newcomers and established old hands, as the phrase is in English. Not a very polite phrase in English, but still, so happy to have you, and so thrilled to have all of your films in the program. They're all so special to us, and we were just very excited to share them with the audiences here. And I'd love for starters just to hear from each of the filmmakers. I mean, they're all such strong and different pieces, and I think they kind of at least fit together somehow for me. But I'd love to hear how each of them began, kind of what were the beginnings of these films, and what kind of compelled you to share the stories that you do. And we can start with Jorge and OUSMANE.
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been living in Montreal for the past 18 years, but from, I think, 2013 to 2020, I couldn't go to Brazil, so I stayed away for 7 years. And then, during the time, I lost relatives, people died, and then, for me, making this film, OUSMANE, was kind of a way to kind of, see a way to kind of, find peace with the fact that I live abroad and I can't take care of my relatives, so, and then, the whole thing kind of, came to me as really in one time, quickly. And then I started developing and start to understand a little bit more why I was doing that. So it's kind of I always start with a very in third person. And then as I write, and then the film becomes more and more close to who I am. And I understand my personal link to the project. So that was mainly the reason, the longing, the fact that I was living abroad and not being able to see my relatives. Yeah, that was the core of the film. Yeah,
it's so beautifully expressed too. I mean, it's just obviously such a personal piece, but yeah, it's lovely. So thank you. And same to Marie, which is another super distinctive, one of a kind of piece, and we love it to bits. So I'd love to hear how this piece began for you.
Yeah, so it's a film about boobs. So it started for me probably at puberty. Yeah, it was a shock for me when they kind of bloomed. It was really something weird, and it's something that stuck with me, and it's just it grew into me, all of the aspects of boobs. They can be food, they can be competition, they can be attraction, they can be cancer, they can be so many things, and they all collide for me at the same time. So I was just kind of exploring that, and yeah, I read a lot of books on boobs and on different aspects of them, and yeah, it made the film.
Oh, it's great. Now, look forward to hearing more about it, just because there's all those ideas are sort of at play in the film in such a lovely way. And the same for by SYCORAX. So I guess certainly connects with other films that sort of you've both done in the past, but it feels very fresh as well.
Lois?
No, well, I think the very beginning was to work together. That was the main idea. And after that, we decide what we can do. And here, Matías brought a very nice idea that was following his investigation, his reflection about the the female characters in the comedies of Shakespeare, and because in the Tempest play, because it's the play where the nature and the fantasy has more place, and it was I think a nice idea where our visions could merge.
For me, it was a good idea to work with Lois, so that to think again about ourselves, no? Like after making a few movies, it's interesting to mix and to try something different and to expose yourself to other things that you have not thought of, no? So working with Lois, that is a filmmaker that I admire so much, and that is a friend that year after year we became more close, and so it was a great opportunity to try someone else's shoes, to try things outside from what you were expected to, and yeah, an opportunity to think anew.
It definitely, yeah, and that's it. I think it's such a terrific film, and it really does. It feels like it's a kind of a continuation, certainly with the Shakespeare themes, but it feels very like a new direction as well. So thanks so much for sharing it.
Thank you.
And so yes, and that's in it. I mean, certainly, I'm really excited to hear about every film is its own journey, both figurative and literal in many cases. And again, sort of trying to sort of make films in recent times with all kinds of complications. So I'm again very grateful that you're all managed to get to these finish lines. But yeah, starting with Jorge again, just to talk about the process of making the film, and certainly is something I think it feels very obviously as a deep personal root, but it's something I think it's obviously comes from a really incredible collaboration with these actors. I'm starting with your lead actor, who's such a phenomenal. And certainly I've seen other films, and he brings so much to the table, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy. I mean, I kind of like I had to be honest. Like, it was a film that was hard for me to find in the beginning collaborators. Like producers, and it was kind of like, so I had to put everything like on my back, and then like, okay, if I believe in that, I have to push through, So I kind of like, I did the Isaka, my main actor comes from Burkina Faso, and then I had to apply for the work permit myself. So I did like all the papers, like, customs. I had to learn all these things. Like, it was like insane, And then the funny thing is that I wrote for him this film like about 3.5 years ago. I started writing it. And when I saw Diego Star, the film that he did, I really love his acting, and I thought, oh my God, I wanted to work with this actor. Fast forward, my film got selected. My previous film got selected in a few festivals, and I met this actor who I explained what I was working next, and then like I said, well, I wish I could work with this actor, and then she brought up that she knew him personally. It was like, how random is that, And then she said, sure. I just thought it was like people talk during festivals, and it was not even real. And then like a week later, she sends me a DM and then sends me his number, and I get in touch. And Isaka is literally like, I think we are separate at birth, it's literally that, because I sent him the script, and then he wrote to me right away, and we spent 1.5 hours on the phone. It was like, I don't know you, but he wrote a story that resembles a lot of my experience because I lived in Norway. Like all that for me makes so much sense and is so important. So we kind of like together, he was my main support, because throughout was so many difficulties with COVID and stuff. And he had to do like a 14-day quarantine in order to play in the film. Imagine this actor who's, Netflix and doing this and that, had to stay in Montreal in an apartment in the winter, and then he did with like pleasure. And I thought it was so he didn't ask me for anything. I went to do grocery shopping, and it's like, George, relax. I'm here for the good reason. You don't have to worry about that. And then it was great. I honestly and then, when I moved, I was a photographer before I became a filmmaker. And the transition for me was via acting. I took like about 3 years of Meisner classes, and that really kind of like made me like understand a lot more of the universe of acting. And that's the approach that I try to get with my actors, like to kind of like try to be on the genuine and the listening part, rather than, what I mean? Don't play outside your body, Sometimes I tend not to give too much instruction. I'm a prep guy. I like to talk a lot in preparation, but I don't like to impose too much on set. I try to really accommodate things with the actors, And I found this great casting, the mother, the kids. I mean, literally, like those kids were like, I was like, how is it possible to shoot with kids that easy? You guys, eventually, guys, if you didn't see, you're gonna see it. It's just like, the woman playing the mother. It's literally she was their mother at the end, in a sense. So it was so not acting. I think that, and then like the Dardenne said, they say like you can't really direct kids. And for me, those kids were not directed; they were just playing themselves. So it was a great experience. It was so film for me, like it has this wave of warmth, right? When you see people doing what you actually wrote, yeah, it was such an emotional journey. So I'm super glad we pushed through against all odds, and then we managed the finish line, and we're having a premiere at TIFF. It's just like beyond, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Oh, and thank you for making, because it really, I was just thinking about how the film does have that really genuine warmth to it, which is something obviously you get from kind of, giving strong material to actors and letting them kind of give life to it. And you can really feel that's taken place with the film. And you've also managed to do it in like what's clearly a miserable Montreal winter, which is a nice contrast.
I mean, like I think like if Saka, the main actor, like we got through this, I feel we can do anything. After that, you know what I mean? Like, with the conditions we had, because it was so hard to get even locations, because people didn't want to rent their places, for shoots. So even that, like, kind of like, you were in this small apartment, like the people were like, COVID times, like the team were like in the hallway, sitting down, waiting for the thing. And like, and everybody was super nice. So it was like such a beautiful, I mean, that's why I love filmmaking, which is very different from photography, because photography is a lonely job and filmmaking is a collaboration, like, and people, when you find the right peers, it's such a beautiful energy, right? There's this thing that really happens that's magical. And I think that is, and then you see on the film afterwards.
Well, I think that's all that feeling is definitely present in the film in a very strong way. So again, thank you. And the same, it's funny because thinking about, like, it's been interesting sort of talking to the animators in the program and just their experiences too, because it's sort of like you think they have the natural advantage of kind of being able to sort of work alone, but it's and there's some downside to that, I'm sure too. But like Marie, so was this film, did it take a long time? Was it in the works a long time before sort of the pandemic, or was it?
Yeah, it was a long process, maybe around 7 years or something.
Oh, wow.
Like that. Because there were so many steps, like getting the financing, getting no, then yes, and no, yes, and then you get the financing, and then you make the script, and then you rewrite the script and over again. And I had other jobs, I'm also a co-director of a stop motion festival, and I do some stop motion as well. So yeah, it was kind of part-time, and then part of the film was made during the pandemic as well. And like you said, you think like, since we're pretty much solitary creatures, like that we would be okay. And it was kind of okay, but yeah, you kind of miss the, like, seeing people and getting some exercise and moving a bit.
It's something. I mean, the film is like, I think that's something I'm really drawn to. I mean, I guess with stop motion very well too. But it's a very tactile film, and the technique is something that I think is so has such an impact. I mean, can you talk about kind of the processes of the animation this time around for you?
Yeah, so it was a whole brand new technique for me, using rotoscopy, that's called. So it's basically filming live action, and then tracing frame by frame with a pencil on paper. So yeah, I put my live action in a basic laptop and put my paper on top and just draw what I saw. So, and I also photographed the film like that, like with my paper and the live action getting through it, and that's what gave the colors of the film. So yeah, it was a pretty long process, but really fun and tactile to have real paper, which we don't usually use these days. But yeah, piles and piles of paper, and then other techniques mixed in, like we had some cutouts for the boobs that were added on top. They were all shot separately on a blue screen and then composited afterwards on top of the animation. And yeah, just a big mix of everything. Was pretty new to me and pretty exciting. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, too, like, because I think that's something I think is really exceptional about the film, is that it does have this, there's a sense of a whimsy, and it's inventive, but it's got a sort of serious side and a melancholy side too. Like it seems like something that could have become too cute or too something, and yet it there's definitely a quality. I mean, there's definitely a balance of that thing. I mean, was it difficult to get to that point?
To get a balance between like the funny or the dramatic,
Yeah.
and but I think it's something that I want in my films, you know, like kind of a balance of things. But yeah, of course, animation also is often associated with, you know, cute things or kids stuff. But yeah, it has so much potential for adult and for other aspects, you know, and something like sexuality or like boobs. Boobs are so raw, like it's hard to see them in live action. Like, so having them in animation, you can get a little bit of distance in a way, so you can portray them. And at the same time, since it's rotoscopy, it's based on something real, so it has the both aspects. I think that's fun to me, to work with reality, but like pushing it a little bit with animation and going further and going into imagination. Yeah.
It's and that's something that's sort of that kind of that intermingling, this close intermingling of sort of reality, or this kind of raw real with the sort of more fantastical. I think is a great segue into the world of SYCORAX, which has this kind of real, you know, just beautiful sort of shift between those two, which like, you know, all the way through the film. And I'd love to actually, first of all, to hear about, I mean, how you guys ended up working, like what it was like to work together. I mean, did you have kind of complementary styles, or was it tough to kind of find a rhythm together? Or what was that process of sort of finding a kind of mutual collective direction like?
Matías.
Yeah, terrible. And yeah, get me out. No. It was good. It was the first time that I was co-directing like shoulder to shoulder. No, we were working together. It's not that I was in charge of the framing and you were in charge of the actors or no, we were doing it very much together. I think that it has to do with, we know each other now for some quite years, and we've been trying to make a film, a feature that's called Ariel that we're going to do, and SYCORAX is somehow like a preparation for that film. It's a sort of prologue in a way. And it was a way for us to see if we could work together. No, if there was something interesting for us, personally speaking, in working together. No, and so there was this lust for working together, this desire, this will to explore, and so it was very natural how we shifted from in every step of the way. Like we went to look for locations in a couple of places. It was not a film that we did in like that. It took like a couple of years. We went to Lanzarote, we went to Azores, we thought about going to Scotland. It took years. And of course, it's not that we are millionaires that we can just decide to go to this place. No, it took like 4 years to do it. And so all this time somehow condensed in what the movie somehow ended up being.
That's great. Yeah, it is. Yeah, you can imagine. It does. I almost feel like it has this. It's funny because I can almost sort of feel that time. I can feel the 4 years, and yet the film just kind of goes, flows like this dream. Like it sort of has this, like it's almost sort of an instantaneous, atemporal sort of quality to it as well. It's so lovely to see. And so, how did you end up filming where you did film?
No, and it was also not only to see how if we can work together, but which language will appear, no? Because Matías' universe and my universe or my interest seem to be different or more opposite than what in reality they are, no? Because they have many connections. I think we are more complementary than opposite, no? In that sense. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the good thing that in SYCORAX and in the future film can appear. But we didn't know which was going to be. And SYCORAX, as you see, it has like different styles in the scenes, no? and that was also a trying to look for that language, that will emerge. And yeah, to find the Azores Island was a very important element, because in the future film Ariel, that appears also in SYCORAX, is the spirit of the island, no, the spirit of the air, or the spirit of the nature, and we needed that visualization, no, that wind, that storm, and in Azores Island, that are in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the weather changes like every hour. You can see the four seasons, no, in front of you, and that was very important for us to be able to feel that power of the nature.
Yeah, that sense of yeah, I mean, it's certainly there in The Tempest when you think about kind of the role of nature and sort of the you know, the violence of nature is certainly a big. I mean, it's all, you know, it all fits together very well thematically. So congratulations. And also just the mystery of that character, and just to have that mystery kind of imprint and inform this film too.
Yeah, it's an invisible character, and we wanted to try to make it visible through ways that are not that easy to see.
Yeah, I think that's you've achieved that, or, you know, maybe not achieved it, but you come very close, because
Yeah.
you can to get to. I'm not sure if everyone, you can't get all the way there, because then you'd probably kill it. You want to be suggestive. So,
yeah, of course, it's a good way.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you all so much for joining me here. We're out of time, unfortunately. I wish I could hear more, because I think the films are all so rich, and we are thrilled to have them in the program this year and share them with audiences. So thanks again to everyone, and I hope these films have great lives, and there are many more films after them. So thanks again.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Hi, and welcome back to the Toronto International Film Festival. Thanks for joining us for one of our Q&A sessions with the directors of films we're presenting in Shortcuts Program 5 here at TIFF. My name is Jason Anderson, and I'm the programmer for Shortcuts. And I'm very joined by Kiran Deol, who is the star writer and director of I Would Never, which we're very happy to have in the program and here at the festival. So thanks, first of all, for joining us and for connecting.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great. You know, we're really excited to share the film. It's a really powerful, potent piece, and I think we just, you know, again, and I just sort of, I mean, I was expressing to filmmakers a lot this week, like, thank you for finding the time and energy and means of actually making work, because it's, I mean, certainly a very challenging time for all of us, and so to sort of have this bounty of amazing films, I'm really very, very grateful for.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this one's interesting because it is a single location in an apartment, so that's very, very pandemic friendly, I suppose.
It was, there were certain limitations, which were advantages, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, just for starters, I'd love to hear how this film began. You know, it's a really remarkable one, and certainly love to hear about any beginnings or inspirations, and really why you felt so compelled to tell the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that one of the big things for me was when I read an article, you know, that came out in like kind of, especially in the Me Too era, you read an article and sometimes it can feel a little like, I mean, what's the big deal? There was a hand on the knee. This person said this person said that. And I thought it would be really interesting to play out a scene where you watch the tonal shift and you use the camera as the way to engage that tonal shift and the subjective narrative perspective of the woman. And to show how a romantic encounter can kind of go from something that's really warm and golden to something that isn't. And looking at kind of like the gray, I think, in communication and how things can get murky and messy in practice. Because hopefully that gets it across in a way that's much more like guttural and visceral than what you might read in an article or words on a page.
Oh, and I think it's very powerful. I think it's even, you know, because I mean, certainly we see many films on the subject, and they can be, you know, very well intentioned but quite didactic, or just they're very like, whereas I think the power in this film is really in that staying in that moment and staying in that murkiness and staying in that sort of, in that absolute sort of present like in those and all those tonal shifts that are happening, some subtle and some very dramatic, and I think it's really remarkable. So again, thank you.
Yeah. No, I know. No, I really appreciate that. That was absolutely the goal, was like, how do we just play in that space of gray? What is each person thinking? And I think, you know, these conversations are complicated, and starting to look at them as complicated so that hopefully we as a society can start to engage in, you know, the more vulnerable conversations that go beyond this question of like villain or victim perpetrator, you know, like we can start to engage in like kind of the heavier work as a society, because there's obviously a lot of space in between people's points of view.
Was there, I mean, did it take a long time in the writing and preparation to kind of figure out how, you know, what you wanted to do and how you were going to do it? I had the idea for a long time, and then I wrote it relatively quickly. And then when we put it into practice, you know, originally we wanted to set it in a dorm room, and just because of circumstances, we're like, can we do single location in an apartment and find a way to like transform a single space? So you kind of see those shifts from, you know, you never end up, your edit is never exactly what you write, and the thing you shoot isn't exactly what you write, and you know what I mean? It's all, every process is its own iteration. So I think we got something close, but ultimately hope more nuanced, because there was just I felt really lucky in the collaboration on this with both the producer, Erica Fishman, and my editors, Zeus Kahano and James Darling, and with a fabulous actor, Dan Johnson, where there was just a lot of trust, and, you know, we're friends over time. So there's just a tremendous amount of trust on the set to achieve the intimacy that we were looking for. Yeah, I was going to ask about that too, because really, I mean, you really are kind of locked in. You're both in this, you know, as performers, locked in a really vulnerable moment. And I just want to think about that. I mean, there must have been a lot of talk about sort of kind of creating that space and protecting that space and making sure people are okay. Was that always kind of big priorities?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of, you know, Dan Johnson and I had worked before. We'd been friends for years. So that really helped create, you know, in a day or two shoot, it's very, very quick, right? So having that past history, having that trust going in, having worked with people on the crew previously, you guys have a little bit of a shorthand and a little bit of an advantage, even if you don't have a ton of time on set to get, you know, a series of shots. And then, you know, we just had an incredible and fast DP and crew with Auntie Chang, who's, I mean, just phenomenal. You can see his work in like Cannes and all over the place now. So, who works very quickly, but just I think has a real respect for actors, and is really like your partner. I really felt like, you know, it's always a dance, and you're just trying to, I think on every film, everyone's just trying to act like one organism that's like one brain to achieve a vision. And I felt super lucky on this one that we had that kind of just, you know, that small team of people who helped achieve that.
That's amazing. And I can imagine, like, I mean, was it a particular challenge for you to sort of be like a performer who's kind of locked into that moment in that space in the performance space, and have the sort of second part of your brain in that sort of directorial mode at the same time? What was that like?
I did. So for that, I did a lot of pre-work before. So on the day, it's like, just be the performer. Trust your producer, trust your editor to be your eyes on the monitor. We had to move quickly, so I didn't watch playback. Just trust them. And then we front loaded the most intense scenes for like day 2, right at the beginning of the day. So when you're fresh, you kind of get those knocked out. And those were pretty effective, I think, ways to approach it. So on the day, you know, you can't be judging yourself too much. You're like, these guys know what I want. We'll get it. So
that's amazing. It's great. And yeah, I mean, I think I just got time for one more, but I mean, it is such a film that has a real impact, and I think is something that is going to, you know, provoke, you know, discussion and consideration, just because it's really loaded with a lot. There's a lot in there. I mean, and I guess I'm just sort of curious about what you're feeling, sort of most hoping that people, you know, viewers of the film take away from it, or what kind of response that would be, you know, something you were always hoping for.
I think that's a great question, Jason. I really hope that, I think good films, in my experience, like spark conversation, and they don't give you answers. They hopefully stay with you and, you know, kind of engage or initiate conversations with your friends. It's a thing you talk about and think about. If that happens and it is a jumping off point for other people, I think that's the greatest possible success that you could have with the movie. That's
great. I really hope I have that kind of response here, and so we're just very happy to share the film and give it some love and attention, because it's a remarkable piece. So thanks so much for joining us, and thanks to viewers for being here too. So thanks again. Thanks, Jason. And I thought you might find this kind of funny if you look behind me. So that's the set. This is my that is without the production design. It's like I just keep going like this. It's like, look at that blue wall. It is actually an amazing piece of green screen work you've just accomplished. Yeah. That's right. Industrial Light and Magic. We give full props. Yes, exactly. Yes. Me and JJ Abrams just really crushed it. Awesome. All right. Thanks so much. Thank you, Jason.